Weather forecast.
All right, let's take a look at your weather pattern for the next several days, and we'll start off by the satellite radar loop that shows some high-level clouds sweeping in from the west, and then some low clouds that are very hard to see. A little bit of fog, that shade of gray you see right there, and that's been prevalent during the overnight and early morning hours, but it will get better in the inland areas. It's going to hang around a bit in your coastal waters. It'll be mostly cloudy and breezy and this afternoon, but this morning and into the afternoon, there's still going to be some areas of fog out there. Look for a high in the middle 70s, the water at 73 degrees, and a southeast wind at 10 to 20 knots. That'll make for slightly choppy to occasionally choppy bays and 3 to 5 foot seas. Now, as you look across the state, it's still quite chilly. Grab your coats if you're out there to the west of us, well to the west of us, and actually grab your parka there in Marfa, where it's 29 degrees, but along the coastal plains, a much different story, and that's where we are, and we've got 60s and 70s. In fact, it's 74 degrees right now at the Naval Air Station and 73 downtown Corpus Christi, even out towards Robstown. Well, the fog is generally getting better now. It's lifting in most areas. You're up to 1¼ miles at Port A, and everybody else 4 to 6 miles. Hebronville's still down at 3/4 mile, but even that's going to be improving. In fact, we're going to be mostly sunny this afternoon with breezy conditions, that onshore flow lifting temperatures up to the 80s, almost, well, actually in the lower 90s in our southern and inland areas, so be prepared for that. It's going to be hot everywhere except the immediate Gulfside beaches. You're still going to have that fog hanging around, and then overnight it doesn't go away either, but at least it doesn't go as far inland tonight as it did this morning, and that's because the winds are going to stay up. In fact, you're going to be looking at these winds that are fairly light right now, picking up 15, 20, 22 miles an hour this afternoon, and then dropping off only to about 8 to 12 miles an hour tonight, and then really cranking as you go into Wednesday, 20, gusting over 30, and gusting well over 30 on Thursday, and that's just ahead of another strong cold front. Now, it'll be downright hot as you move into tomorrow. Middle to upper 90s in the inland areas, and some places actually breaking 100 on Thursday afternoon. But the clouds today and tomorrow, in and out, mostly in the morning and out in the afternoon. So morning clouds give way to afternoon sun. That's the formula for the next couple of days. You do see this powerful disturbance moving in to the southern plains. That'll be Thursday night into early Friday morning. Unfortunately, we're kind of left out of the action with that from the rainfall perspective, but what it does do is it ushers some very dry air into the region here, and we're going to see that enhanced fire condition coming up Thursday night and Friday morning. So here's your forecast, and it calls for temperatures surging into the lower 90s midweek and then cooling off into the lower to middle 70s after that with no sight of rain. Guys.
In 4 minutes, a look at some of your top stories of the day, including President Biden traveling to Virginia Beach to focus on health care.
The House Foreign Affairs Committee expected to debate a proposal that would allow the president to ban TikTok nationwide.
And a look at what's ahead on the Today Show.
Good morning. Coming up on Today, a messy morning for millions as that massive winter storm reaches the East Coast. We'll have the latest, and Al's already tracking the next storm threat. Also ahead, jurors at the Alec Murdaugh trial visiting the crime scene yesterday. Craig will be there live at the courthouse with the very latest. Then more and more families saving on that getaway by buddying up. In our Spring Break Confidential, Vicki Wynn has a home share checklist to help you split those vacation costs without the hassle. All that plus country star Dierks Bentley is here, getting ready to rock Studio 1A with a special live performance when we see you right here on Today.
Your first top story today, President Biden travels to Virginia Beach to focus on health care. According to White House officials, he'll point fingers at Republicans over proposals he says will raise health care prices. Virginia's Republican governor criticized him for making the speech in Virginia instead of Ohio, where some people have health concerns related to this month's train derailment.
Today, the House Foreign Affairs Committee is expected to debate a proposal that would allow the president to ban TikTok nationwide. The proposed bill was introduced by Republican Michael McCaul. He says his bill would empower the administration to ban TikTok or any software applications that threaten national security. Today's debate follows new White House guidance banning TikTok from government-issued devices.
The defense rested its case yesterday in the double murder trial of Alex Murdaugh. Today, the prosecution will call a handful of witnesses. Afterwards, the jury will visit Murdaugh's home where his wife and son were killed. This is part of a request by the defense team. Closing arguments are expected to start later this week.
And also up for argument is the student debt forgiveness.
Yeah, the president's plan to pay it off goes before the Supreme Court today. Covering this live is our Washington, D.C. correspondent Joe St. George from the U.S. Supreme Court.
That's right. Good morning, Joe. And what will be argued here?
Well, first off, how many monumental mornings have we chatted over the last couple of years about a hearing, a case happening at the Supreme Court? This is another one of them. I think the big difference here is that a lot of the other cases involved rights, right? Whether it was Second Amendment rights, reproductive rights. This is very much a financial issue for millions of Americans, and that's why there's high interest in this case. There are millions of Americans wondering, okay, when is my federal student loan payment going to begin again? For those that are eligible for cancellation of some of this debt, some may never have a student loan payment again. So there's certainly a lot at stake here. I think we can pop up on screen what these two cases are about. Remember, not one, but two cases being argued involving student loan cancellation today. One in Biden v. Nebraska. 6 conservative-leaning states are suing in an attempt to block this. Their argument, they say, is that they're negatively impacted financially if forgiveness is allowed to go through. I think a big debate during oral arguments this morning is going to be whether or not that is an appropriate grounds, if that's standing enough to go forward with this case. A big legal question has been, do these attorneys general have standing? And typically, in order to sue to block something, you need to be a victim. You need to have been negatively impacted. So that's going to be a big part of the first case. The second case, even more technical. Department of Education v. Brown, they're arguing a part of it will be about whether or not the Biden administration followed the proper public comment period before they rolled out this forgiveness plan. The overarching debate, though, continues to be whether or not President Biden has the legal authority to cancel debt. The White House says absolutely they do. The HEROES Act, which initially passed in the aftermath of September 11th, the White House argues gives the Secretary of Education broad authority to cancel student debt during national emergencies. By now, our viewers are a bit familiar, right, with this process. Oral arguments will happen today. Don't look for an actual opinion to be issued for several months. Student loan payments are set to begin 60 days after an opinion is issued.
Gotcha, Joe. We know there are steps to be taken here. How soon could we get a ruling?
Could you repeat that question one last time? We've got a loud band playing. I want to answer it correctly.
So
one more
great.
time.
No, how soon do you think we could get a ruling?
Yeah, I think we're still a couple of months away. You know, what typically happens is that the Supreme Court will take their time on big cases. They often save releasing opinions on their big, high-profile cases towards the end of their term. That typically puts us in the month of June, which 60 days after that would put us somewhere in the month of August for when student loan payments would begin.
And Joe, now what do those who have already applied for this potential loan forgiveness do in the meantime?
You know, I think one of those things is don't plan on it. Don't bank on it, right? I think it would be ill-advised to basically say, I'm never going to have a student loan payment again. We don't know how the Supreme Court is going to rule. On paper, it's a conservative-leaning court, right? 6-3. That means the odds are against President Biden going forward. This isn't necessarily, though, a Democrat, Republican, liberal-leaning, conservative-leaning thinking argument, though, which is why there is a chance President Biden could prevail in this case. So don't bank on anything, and at the same time, know that federal student loan payments are going to eventually come back and most likely will return by the fall of this year.
Good reminder, Joe. Thanks so much for your time today.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to speaking to you next week,
guys.
Joe. Well, 5 Fridays in March means 5 major movies heading to theaters.
That's some good popcorn. Rick Damigella has a preview into the most anticipated flicks of the month. Take a look.
Michael B. Jordan steps back in the ring and behind the camera to star in and direct Creed 3. The bell rings March 3rd.
This is Commander Mills. My ship was hit by an undocumented asteroid.
Adam Driver crash lands on an unfamiliar world populated by prehistoric creatures in 65. The fight to survive begins March 10th. Hey, Billy Batson and his superpowered siblings are back in Shazam! Fury of the Gods. The sequel to the 2019 DC movie flies into theaters March 17th.
I'm going to need a gun.
Welcome back, Mr. Wick. Keanu Reeves returns as the well-dressed assassin in John Wick Chapter 4. The contract goes out March 24th.
We're thieves, but we help the wrong person steal the wrong thing and unleash the greatest evil the world has ever known.
Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez will need to make critical roles during their adventure in Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. The game begins March 31st. Getting an extra-large popcorn in Hollywood, I'm Rick Damagella.
Well, the sun has risen across the area, and it's looking pretty good out there. No big downturns in visibility expected anytime soon. In fact, let's take a look at the current condition. You've got that little band of fog out there in the inland areas, basically around Hebronville back towards George West. Other than that, no real problems out there. Inbound across the Harbor Bridge looking great. The downtown, not too bad. The usual traffic jam slowdowns, but nothing really treacherous out there. Both the major east-west arteries are looking good. In fact, if we go out here into the Midtown, also looking good, and your drive times are not unrestricted. We'll be back with one more look at news and weather